charisma to challenge Rick Scott. And let's go back to 2018 for a minute. Rick Scott was that close to not getting elected. In Duval, it was a recount of paper ballots. I was there and it was heartbreaking because just a little more effort, and by now we'd be saying, Rick who? But in these 6 years, Rick Scott has not gotten more likable. He has not gotten more honorable. What's happened is we've just gotten used to having a person of that caliber as our senator, but we don't have to. He's climbed the Republican ladder by being the first person mean enough to say out loud that we should cut Social Security and privatize Medicare, the systems that provide for the dignity and the security of our seniors and really for the independence of all of our families. There's so many reasons Rick Scott should be defeated, but we need a candidate like Debbie to do it. She deserves our attention tonight and our support and our efforts all year long. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Gloria, for that introduction. Carol, to the beach activists, to the Indivisible Mandarin group. I really, really appreciate this time to spend with you. Hopefully I'll get to see you next time I'm in Jacksonville in person. My name is Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. Like Gloria said, I'm a mother of 3. I'm a proud Latina, former Congresswoman, and I'm running to be your next U.S. Senator and defeat Rick Scott in November. And I'm running because I have been traveling the state, and so many Florida families are struggling, whether it's the high cost of rent, the property insurance crisis that is pricing people out of their homes, the high cost of medicine. Florida families can't afford to live in our incredible state. But when you have a self-serving fraud like Rick Scott, someone who oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in the history of this country, someone that put more than 60 million to buy that Senate seat, you have no idea what it's like to live on a fixed income. You have no idea what it's like for a senior that has to be living on their Social Security check, or for that single mom trying to pay for the medicine for their child. And it wasn't long ago that people like you believed in 2018 that we needed change. And just like in 2018, with the help of so many people that I won, and I was sent to become the first South American immigrant to ever serve in the U.S. House of Representatives, I know that we can do it again in 2024. And my journey, I owe so much to my mom who had the courage to leave our home country of Ecuador, to bring my sisters and I here, knowing that only in America would I have these opportunities. And I watched her work 12-hour shifts as a home health aide. I started working at the age of 15 at a minimum wage job at a donut shop. And so many people would say that somebody like me would never be able to graduate from college, get a master's degree, become an associate dean at the medical school at FIU, or for that matter, serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. But I've always known that in this incredible country, if you work hard enough, if you believe hard enough, anything is possible. But unfortunately, my story is becoming an exception when it should be the rule because of extreme politicians like Rick Scott. And I don't have to tell you that in Florida, we have become ground zero for attacks on our democracy, for attacks on our freedoms and our rights. Extremists like Scott want to tell us who to love, what to do with our bodies, what we can teach, what we can talk about in schools, and we can't allow that to happen. I can tell you as a Latin American immigrant, I know very, very well what it looks like when you have a dictatorship, when you have a government interfere in every decision of your private life as a citizen. I knew that, that was possible in Latin America. I never thought that that could happen here in the United States. It's another reason why I am so committed to doing everything in my power to not only win this seat, but protect our democracy. And when I was in Congress, because of the work that I had done at FIU, expanding access to healthcare, I made sure that I wrote a bill to expand Medicare coverage. And what was Rick Scott doing? He was writing a plan to sunset Medicare and Social Security. And when I was trying to bring more money to the state for Florida families and small businesses, he was trying to pass higher taxes for middle-class families. And those are not the only issues that he's been horrible at and has turned his back on Floridians. He's actually someone that is pushing a national abortion ban, who says that he would proudly have signed into law the most extreme 6-week abortion ban if he was governor. Well, let me just say, as a mother of 2 daughters and as a woman who knows what it means to lose those rights, we can't allow an extreme politician to make those decisions for us and to take away our reproductive freedom. And it's not only access to healthcare and reproductive healthcare and abortion. It is also a safety issue for our daughters. It's an economic issue for our families. We cannot stand and allow this man to do this with all extreme politicians. And like it was mentioned before, he has been the worst as it pertains to climate change. He banned the use of climate change when he was governor. He repealed water protections. He has voted time and time again on any sort of bipartisan compromise that brings green investments to our state. I was in Congress. I wrote a bill and actually included $200 million for Everglades restoration. And I did that with bipartisan support. I know how to work it across the aisle because that's what we need to serve Florida families. And last, a very important issue for me is the issue of gun violence. I lost my father when I was 24 to a criminal who shot him with a gun, and it changed my life forever. And for me, it's a failure. It's a moral failure to have extremists like Rick Scott side with the gun lobby, vote against a bipartisan deal that would bring funding for safer schools, for mental health programs. He cares about nothing when it pertains to our children being killed every single day to this gun violence epidemic. It's time to pass the universal background check bill, and it's time to ban assault weapons. I've been very vocal about that. But look, there's a lot to be optimistic about. I've been traveling the state, and like all of you tonight, people are so ready, so energized, and are so excited to bring change to Florida in November. We saw it in Orlando when Tom Keene won that seat. It was a Republican-held seat by 11 points. He won it by 3 points. It's a 14-point shift. We saw it in Jacksonville when all of you did the work to elect Donna Deegan. It was such a high moment for all of us in Florida. And Rick Scott has never run in a presidential election. He's never won by more than a percentage point. He has never run against the millions of women and men that are going to come out to the ballot box to protect reproductive freedom. And he's never run against a Latina like myself that knows exactly how to fight back and communicate with our communities. And so this is my commitment to you. I am doing everything in my power to make sure that we win this November because Florida deserves better. But I need you to make a commitment tonight that you're going to be with me every step of the way, because I know that I need a winning team behind me, and you're all part of that team. Thank you so much. And let's get to Q&A. I definitely have some time.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the questions that were submitted in the chat, one of which was my own because I was worried there wasn't going to be any questions, which isn't like y'all. So don't be shy. This isn't usually, this group is very, very engaged and extroverted. So I know there's questions out there, but let's just start from the beginning. From Mike, there's a question about your latest polling and where you stand with that.
Yeah, so I've seen, let me go back a little bit. I have seen 3 polls now, the most recent last week, that shows Rick Scott is completely underwater. The poll that was just released last week has me on a statistical tie with Rick Scott, just head to head. But then when they hear about Scott and then me, I'm up by 4 points. We know that we can win this race. This is one of those races where he is one of the most vulnerable Republicans in the entire country. And we also know that if a Republican is going to lose in the state of Florida, it's Rick Scott. But it's going to require significant investments and a lot of organizing. And we're trying to do both. And we're expecting a lot of investments to come down.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question I submitted, actually, being from South America, I'm curious about how your message is resonating with the various different Latino communities. As you know, they're not monolithic. So could you comment on that?
Yeah, the thing that connects with almost all of them, regardless of where they come from, is my story of someone that came here with nothing, worked very hard to make it, and was able to get as far as I have gotten. That's what so many of us come here for. It's about economic opportunities. It's about making sure that our children are living in safe communities free of violence. So many families have fled, these violent dictatorships, and they're leaving political violence, political persecution, in many cases, famine. That's what we've been seeing from Guatemala. So they really identify with that story, and immediately they connect with that. And I really do talk about economic opportunities, because at the end of the day, we need to provide that for our children, and especially for Hispanics. I think for all of us, right? Not just Hispanics, but Latinos really are always thinking of their children and what they can do to provide for their children. It's at the center of everything that we do for Latinos. It's all about family, and they connect with that. And for me too, right? I mean, everywhere you see me, and as you get to know me, my family is next to me, and it's at the center of a lot of what we do. A lot of the reasons why I'm doing is because my mother deserves better than Rick Scott. My children deserve better. All of you deserve better. So they connect with me and go towards me right away when they hear about who I am.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for a lot of communities, our children kind of take precedence too.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, I don't know the answer to. Are you getting any funding from the National Democratic Party?
Yeah, so the DSCC have been partners with me every step of the way. They are making some investments now. We need to make sure that we remain competitive to bring the significant investments that you'll see. I think that at this point, that's exactly what we're doing, and the polling is showing that. So we just need to continue to do that. And if any of you have access to any groups outside, you tell them exactly what's going on in Florida. I need advocates as well. But I feel very confident that it will be coming.
Right. Wonderful. Then we have a question from Warren saying, I am a senior, and I think the issue of cutting back on Social Security is one you should highlight, which of course it is highlighted on your webpage and so on, and you do speak about it. But how is your position different from Scott's? I think you've kind of answered, but
So, I mean, I can go on and on and on. I mean, the man actually took money when he was the CEO of HCA Colombia, over $300 million after that company committed the largest Medicare fraud in the history of this country. Then used that money to get into the governor's mansion. Wants to eliminate Medicare and Social Security. I want to protect and expand it. And I did that in Congress. So we have, I mean, people can say what they want to say. At the end of the day, there's a written plan that Rick Scott very proudly supported, and that even Mitch McConnell said, that's a Scott plan, that's not our plan. He's going to have a hard time getting reelected in his state. So for me, it's going to be crucial that we protect the benefits that seniors pay into their entire lives. It's about retiring with dignity. It's about making sure that we don't have seniors living in poverty. That's why these programs are so crucial. So you can count on me doing everything in my power once I get to the Senate to not only protect the programs, but make them better. Medicare still needs to include coverage on for eyesight, for glasses, for dental. It doesn't cover that right now. That's why so many people have to buy supplemental insurance for even if you qualify for Medicare.
Great. It's sort of, you're at severe extremes. You couldn't be more opposite. So we have several questions with similar. I'm going to combine two of them. One is from Tyra and one is from John. Basically, there's currently a lot of concern regarding the level of illegal immigration here and across the country. What is your stance? And then what solutions do you see for illegal immigration challenge at the southern border? Thank you.
Yeah, look, we do have a crisis with at the border. It is unsustainable. And when I was in Congress, I voted for border security, for more funding for the border. Rick Scott had an opportunity to do the right thing to protect our national security. And what did he do? He voted against border security because it doesn't serve his political interests. They want to continue to use that point to get political points for the election cycle in November. I think that we need to secure the border, but I also think we need to find legal pathways. There's still tens of thousands of people that are fleeing countries like Haiti, that are fleeing countries. Even in my home country, there's been a lot of violence. There's organized crime happening in the entire hemisphere. We can't just talk about immigration without talking about what's happening in our own continent, and we're not paying attention to that. Where are these people going to go? And part of what I did when I was special advisor for the Summit of the Americas is we worked with countries in Latin America, and they signed onto a migration agreement, which was for countries like Panama, for countries like Colombia, that would actually, they would absorb some of these immigrants and they would stay in their countries and provide work and legal status. We need to also continue to process asylum requests. The country is in turmoil. The world is in turmoil. We have a war in Ukraine. We have what's going on in Israel. And we have to make sure that we can fight and protect democracy abroad, because that directly affects our democracy here. And that's why it's so important to provide aid to our allies as they fight for their sovereignty and their freedom abroad. But we also have to make sure that we're paying attention to this region, because that's part of the problem at the border.
Yes, thank you. We had Elizabeth also was asking about the border, but she had a secondary question about, do you feel bipartisan work is even possible these days, you know, with your colleagues in DC?
I think that, you know, there's still some Republicans in Washington that you may not know of, one in Pennsylvania, one in Ohio, that are moderate enough that you can find and do some work. I did that when I was in Congress with Brian Mast on the environment, and also Francis Rooney. I always try to do that because it brings other people into the fold that will support a bill. If it's just, you know, one-sided, it's much more difficult, and that's how you govern. I am really worried that we no longer have a functioning Republican Party, right? I mean, you've seen who took over the RNC. And so I doubt that they're going to find any sort of compromise. But if they are interested in solving any of these issues, I will absolutely sit at the table and have those conversations. And you have to keep trying. And I would do that. I will talk to anyone to see if we can find a place where we can agree so that we can do better for our state and for our families.
Right. And if only they'd introduced that last bill, we may have solved some of it. So it's the tail wagging the dog right now. Okay, our next question is Sarah asked,
and I think this is my last question, Nancy, because I'm at the last bit of the boarding.
Okay, then let's see. You're virtually tied ahead of Scott in the polls, or ahead, but you still have a crowded primary ahead. How will you unite your opponents after August?
So you know, a lot of the people that have filed are not really running campaigns. I haven't seen them anywhere. I haven't, but I would absolutely reach out and make sure that we all work together. But I haven't seen anything, so I don't really have a contested primary. I'm paying attention, of course, and I will communicate before the August primary. I still need people to come out and vote. But if and when I have the chance to have those conversations, I will, because at the end of the day, this is about Florida. It's about making sure that we elect someone that's going to put Florida first. And I think that's it for me.
Okay.
It's
Thank
my
you.
last call.
We really appreciate it. We appreciate
Thank you, everyone. I can come back on anytime. I want to see all of you. Nancy, I really appreciate putting together the group. And let's do this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank
All
you
right.
again. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
We've- yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
so I was just going to say, Carol has put up a nice graphic supplied by the DMP because her name is a bit challenging. Her team is DMP, which actually suits me fine. So to get more involved with Team DMP, she's of course on former Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram. You can text to 60150. There's QR codes. And we kind of know how to do this, right? How we should get more on social media, amplify the posts, speak to our voters at events, work with local organizations, sign up to volunteer, which many of us do very frequently. And I guess my one question, I'm assuming there are some folks on the call still with Team DMP. One of the questions I've gotten is when would some literature be available for us, because we are already canvassing in certain neighborhoods?
I can take that one. Nancy, Carol, Gloria, everyone, thank you so much for having us. I'm Kate with Debbie's campaign. We are working to get lit as soon as possible. Probably will be something a little bit smaller than whatever lit we'll have down the road. But I would say by April, we're really trying to get literature and figure out, distribution. In the shorter term, we have stickers. We just got t-shirts in. We're working with Erin from our team to figure out, distributing all of those across the state. So please, if you haven't already, I put the volunteer link in the chat. I'll put Erin's email as well. He's our digital organizing manager. He is running a volunteer call right now, which is why he's not on here to connect with you. But he's the best person to, again, we're going to try to basically find like a team captain to give materials to and all the communities across the state. So we'll get there soon, but I want to make sure you get connected with Erin.
Perfect. Those are great contact names. Thank you so much for that, Kate.
Okay, I just wanted to take just a minute. I know we were kind of rushed for time with Debbie because of her schedule, but wanted to take just a minute to tell you who's putting this on, which is the Beaches Activist Movement and Indivisible Mandarin have applied for and received a GROW grant from National Indivisible. And really the purpose of this grant is to try to strengthen our collaboration and really redouble our get out the vote efforts by working together. And so we're going to do a couple of webinars together, hopefully to get people charged up. But we also have a number of other activities that we're working on. We're in the midst of a big postcard campaign, reaching out to people who were purged from the vote by mail list to try to encourage them to renew their vote by mail. So we're doing that in our home districts as well as other parts, hopefully, of Duval County. We've done some joint voter outreach material, again, trying to emphasize issues and values for why people should vote. Because of course, this election is about saving democracy and making sure that we preserve the freedoms that we have in this country. We're in the process of planning a Get Out the Vote Summit on May 8th. On May 8th. Again, an opportunity to try to coordinate our efforts on the ground here in Duval County. And then we're also working jointly on an online voting guide to provide information to voters. So we're real excited about this collaboration. And again, this webinar is part of that effort. Let's see. Gloria, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Indivisible Mandarin? I think you're on mute.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yes, we have started those postcards you saw, the adorable postcards that Carol designed. Volunteers have wanted more postcards than we've got. People are very anxious to send these postcards. And so we've got all of the people who've been dropped from vote by mail in District 6. We have a postcard to them going out. We have, as you see, a coordinator for texting and for phone banking, and we'll be coordinating with other groups that are doing texting and phone banking. So if people volunteer, they'll have a lot of opportunities to do those activities. Candace Hamilton is doing voter registration at public events, and this is really very well received. We've got some, tech QR codes and things that people can speed their voter registration. And so that is going well, and she's been doing that for months. So we're kind of a presence, and people are welcome to volunteer with Candace. And last but not least, canvassing, my first love. We're going out there, we're talking to people, and it's well received. We're talking to Democrats who haven't voted in primaries or city elections before, and people are glad to hear about what's on the primary, August 20th, not just a Democratic primary, but the final election for school board. So we're hitting the streets on that. We do have a meeting with Jimmy Peluso, who's going to be speaking to us about city issues and city council issues. That's April 16th at 6 at the Quarry Road Library. So that's an in-person meeting. We'll be having socials. And as part of this GROW grant, we have made our website more accessible, and it's indivisiblemandarin.com. So come see our website, and we're very much going to be active this year. So please join us.
Great, thank you, Gloria. And I'll just give you a little picture of what's going on with the Beaches activist movement. We are involved in collecting and getting candidate petitions signed for Rachel Grage. She's running for state representative in District 16, which we're very excited about, because last time we had an election in District 16, we did not have an opponent to the current incumbent. And so we're very excited that there's some accountability here, and there's going to be a competitive race. We have our board meeting coming up, and like Gloria mentioned, we'll be finishing up our postcarding event to the vote by mail people on April 11th. We have a number of community voter outreach activities with some of the happenings that are going on at the beaches. We'll be at Pause in the Park, which is always a very popular event, March 23rd at Jordan Park, and then at Arts in the Park in Johansson Park on April 20th. And again, this is an opportunity to talk to voters, to talk to people about the importance of voting, and to help them if they want to get vote by mail or do anything with their registration, update their registration, things like that. So we certainly invite you to join us. Nancy?
Should people just contact you directly, Carol, if they want to do those two activities that you
Yes.
mentioned?
Yes,
Okay.
did I put the?
I think you had Beaches
Yeah,
Activist Movement.
yeah, Beaches Activist Movement at gmail.com is how you can. But if you're attending those events, we'd love to talk to you too.
Great. So just to complete Women's History Month, we are having an in-person book signing with the two authors of The Counterfeit Countess. There's a fascinating true story of Dr. Josephine Janina Mailberg, a Jewish mathematician who saved thousands of lives in Nazi-occupied Poland by masquerading as an aristocrat. So it's sort of like a female Schindler's List, I think, but sounds fascinating. And both authors will be there at the Bookmark, which is located right in Neptune Beach on First Street. It's a wonderful little bookstore. So that's an open invitation for anyone who is interested in attending. It's being sponsored by Jacksonville Now in coordination with the Jewish Federation and the Foundation of Northeast Florida. So we'd love to see you out there. It's a short but sweet event. And then the Unhappy Hour, the first annual, although Unhappy Hour has been happening for many years now. And what Unhappy Hour signifies is the day in the year that various groups would start to earn the same as non-Hispanic males. So for women in general, it's around March 12th or 13th. They're having it on the 21st. For women of color and mothers and Hispanic males, et cetera, they're at different times of the year, going throughout the year, as late as November, believe it or not, for Native Americans. So this is going to be really a happy Unhappy Hour. We will have fun. It's at 4:30 at the Odd Birds Cocktail Lounge down in St. Augustine. So if anyone's interested in attending that, that's also sponsored in part by the Jacks Now chapter, along with the League of Women Voters and the AAUW. So you can reach out directly to jacksnowchapter@gmail.com.
And then finally,
another save the date, because things are coming fast and furious now as we're all gearing up. We have a wonderful speaker, Pamela Birchfort, who has been a lobbyist in Tally for literally 40 some years. You wouldn't know it looking at her, but we heard her speak with a league event, and she is just fabulous. So I really encourage you to listen to her. She's going to do a recap of session and just some general informational things. And that's June 5th at 7 p.m. That will be a Zoom, correct, Carol?
yes.
So please save the date for that. We hope to see you there.
Okay. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. I think we had a great speaker, and we look forward to you joining us in June for our next presentation. As Nancy said, Pamela Birchfort is great. She was on the team that just presented the arguments around the abortion amendment to the Supreme Court. So she's going to give us a legislative wrap up and much more. So thank you all for coming, and have a nice evening.